Okay, so today's cohort is specialized on camp readiness. So we're going to go over how you can find out what camp is best for you and your Girl Scout, what to do for those who are feeling nervous, preparing for overnight camp, a couple of thoughts about the cost, and then what would be next after this meeting based on what you're interested in. For anybody who is watching the recording of this, I will be posting things in the chat as we go. Anything that has been put in the chat will end up in the description of the video on YouTube. So anything that we're talking about will be available to that. And anybody who's here tonight, if you want to get access to any of that, you can go into the link, which will be posted the day after this session. So one of the things people think of most often when they think of Girl Scouts is overnight camp. There was some really great information in a 2019 Girl Scout research study that looked into the impacts of overnight camp and the experience of outdoors through Girl Scouts. And really one of the many magical things that it gives youth is exposure to a large variety of experiences outdoors that they may not have had otherwise. Another nice thing about overnight camp hosted by council staff is it does not require outdoor specific skills in advance by you or your Girl Scout. If you were here for our December Juliette cohort, we kind of went into all kinds of information about what is needed by adults to support their Girl Scouts and Girl Scouts outdoor activity. There's trainings and membership and things of that nature. And when you go to an overnight camp, that's not necessary because all the people we pay to be there already have all that for you. So it can be a nice opportunity to get that experience without you having to jump through as many hoops. And again, it's really nice that your Girl Scout doesn't need to have any specific outdoor specific experience to go to camp. Pretty much everything we talk about today is covered in one way or another in an overnight brochure or an overnight camp brochure that we have. So it's kind of extrapolated and built out. Even if camp isn't something that you are interested in, we recommend checking that out so that you understand what exists. I know that when I was a leader in Nevada, I'd have been a leader for 2 or 3 years. I went to a Girl Scout event and someone told me about our equivalent of troop camp where we could go as a group, but I was like, wait, what? That's a thing? And I had no idea because I never paid attention to any of that stuff because none of my kids wanted to go by themselves. So so it can be really helpful early on or at any point in your Girl Scout career to kind of understand the basic options available because you use that information to help get your Girl Scout ready over time to do said things. You can't decide freshman year that you want your Girl Scout to, well, you can, but you want them to be a camp counselor because that's a big stretch to get out the gate. That's something you want to be working towards over time. So quickly, we want to note there are 2 different types of camp. Tamara was mentioning earlier that her Girl Scout did something called day camp. So day camp is exactly what it sounds like. It's something that happens typically just during the daytime. There's no sleeping over. Our day camps are hosted, planned, and facilitated by our volunteers as opposed to paid staff. Day camps often involve many, if not all of the same activities that overnight camp would, but without the sleeping over. There are some day camps, however, that do offer an overnight, usually on the last day of the session. Typically, day camps will run for like a full week, 5 days, 4 or 5 days. And on the final day, some of the older kids will be allowed to do it overnight. Day camps are a really great fit for those who aren't ready for overnight camp, or traveling somewhere. If it's far away from your home to get to our camps, being away for multiple days isn't viable. Or anybody who just wants to stay closer to home. It can also be done in addition to overnight camp. So it's just more activities that you can do in the summer. Because day camps are run by volunteers, they are usually looking for adult support. So that can be a really great venue if you are trying to build up your comfort and familiarity to going to overnight camp. You can kind of start with that and building your comfortability as an adult and helping them spread their wings a little, but you can also stay closely involved. Day camps also really often offer youth leadership opportunities. There's a thing called being a program aide and a few different leadership programs as Girl Scouts get older that day camps offer in abundance. So that can be really helpful. So while our day camps are run by volunteers, most of them are promoted through our website. So usually they open up for registration in early spring, April on average. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can check out our website and it will list what day camps are available in which areas. They're all over Oregon and Southwest Washington, so you can kind of figure out when and where they are. Overnight camp is what most people are more likely to envision in relation to summer camp. So that is where youth Girl Scouts go to a Girl Scout property. They stay for multiple overnights, varying depending on the program. And they are typically in a structured sleeping unit, so not a tent with poles. There will be camp counselors there that guide them through the experience, where they're going to explore things like canoeing, archery, hiking, all kinds of themed camp experiences. Today, we're going to be mostly talking about the overnight camp, since it's more likely to be something that a family is uncertain about. And then I'll be posting links in the chat to our website for each of these programs that you can dig into later. So right now I'm posting a way to just directly go and check out how to look at basic information for day camps and basic information for overnight camp. On your screen, it may be hard to see depending on what your device is, but it's an excerpt from our overnight camp brochure, so it's easy to access within that. But it basically kind of lays out the different types of camp that there are. So it lists day camp and then the kind of basic as you go into multiple overnights, moving into becoming a camp counselor. So it'll list very basics of what the experience would be for the youth and for the adults. So if you're not quite sure what you want to look into for your Girl Scout, this can kind of give you a big overview of what is available. You can check that out again in the digital brochure that I have, that I just put in the chat. That one's going directly to that page. So what if you or your camper are feeling unsure, a little nervous, don't know what to expect? There's actually a really handy camp readiness quiz in the brochure that I actually really adore. And I especially like the part that there is one for both the youth and the adults. So it's asking questions. Is your Girl Scout, how ready are they to X, Y, and Z? And then it'll ask questions about how ready are you as an adult to let them X, Y, and Z in different degrees. And, you know, it gives you a little score and lets you know that you're green light, ready to go. Let's do this. You know, maybe with got to do a little prep, but you guys can do this. And then like you might want to see about a different year. So that can be really helpful. And because again, while your Girl Scout may be ready, you may not be ready. Because we know that overnight camp can be a bit of a mystery if you've never been there, we have a whole lot of opportunities to learn more about what to expect from camp. As you check out the camp brochure, you'll see that there are camp sessions that involve different levels of adult chaperones. It sounds like everybody here is already kind of familiar with that. We have from going there for the day and just getting a feel for the space. A lot of times those don't necessarily even have a lot of structure activities. You can just roam, and then they're move into overnight opportunities where they can bring their own adult chaperone. There's a variety of me and my guy, me and my girl, me and my person. Based on different genders, it does not just have to be a parent. It could be any trusted adult. If you're willing to send an adult off with your kiddo, they can come to Girl Scout camp. They will require an adult membership, but so those are all options as you move on through your experience and your comfortability. We also host open houses at each of our properties, so you can go check things out. So actually the open houses tend not to have structure. Family days tend to have a little bit of structure, so you get a little taste of what actual camp life is like on family days. In December, we hosted a Facebook Live event that included our camp directors and a few of our staff. I'm going to post a link in the chat that lets you get directly to that recording. Plus, we're going to be having another one in April, so that can be an opportunity. And it's a little bit tailored towards the youth, so that's a great opportunity to watch with your kiddos so they can get a feel for what's going on. Sometimes the new campers are worried that they won't know enough about being a Girl Scout to attend. Like there's some secret code of Girl Scouting that they are gonna not understand when they get there. The beauty of overnight camp is we know if people are coming with all different experience levels. There's a lot of our membership who is a Girl Scout member exclusively for camp. That's all they do is go to camp. So obviously people are going to show up and have no Girl Scout experience. So on the first day, they are given all the information they need to know to be successful in the next week. Any songs they need, any responsibilities that they are going to have, how they manage their space. We're going to assume they have no idea what's going on, and we'll tell them everything they need to know. Another cool thing that they found out in that research that I was talking about in 2019 is that they find that 1 week of Girl Scout camp gives just about the same amount of Girl Scout experience as an entire Girl Scout year, like all built into one space. So in the chat, I'll be putting a link directly to that readiness quiz. So that's something you can check out with you and your Girl Scout. Links to the Facebook. That's not what I need to paste. That would have been so icky. I almost did the whole slide. So the readiness quiz, a link to get to that old recording, plus the information for the next Facebook Live recording. And also there's an FAQ page, so that kind of can also help you figure out some basic questions that a lot of people are asking. So what do you need to do to get your Girl Scout ready for camp? So no matter what experience you've had before, every year is going to be a different thing. But if they're planning to attend in 2025, your first stop obviously will be registering. The camp brochure explains all about the payment terms, but it's important to note that you can make a reservation with a $75 deposit. Once you've registered for a camp session, the readiness quiz is again a great tool to help you get prepared. So anything that you and your Girl Scout weren't ready with flying colors is a place that you could be working on between now and then. So you can have your Girl Scout practice taking showers instead of baths. They can practice living out of a suit house even at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You could just be like, okay, you can help them learn how to pack. And then you could be from home. I will say that my experience, let me step back into the room here real quick. One of my experiences at camp that I find most fascinating, and of course, as adults, we forget the skills we learn over time. Like you forget people don't know how to sweep. Like at some point in your life, you didn't know how to sweep. That's like, fascinating, but how people don't know how to live respectfully, communally, out of a suitcase. Like I go into a sleeping unit of campers and their stuff is just everywhere and they don't know where anything is, yet all of it is strewn about. I don't understand how that's true, but so it's a skill to learn how to like get into your bag. You don't have to pull out everything, or when you do, put it back, just things of that nature. So those are things you could be practicing. Again, you don't even have to go or have anything special happening, but if you did have some trips, you're going to grandma's, going to an overnight at a friend's house, having them help pack. I think that's another one of my experience. One of the keys is if they don't pack their bag, they don't know what they have. So they don't know that there's already a hoodie in there. They don't know that they have 3 pairs of underwear available to them. And then if they don't know what's there, then they can't make sure they bring it home. So they don't know they're missing the pillow because they didn't get the pillow ready, So these are all things that you can check out. And again, use that readiness quiz to understand. Helping them practice new foods, dinner isn't going to be all of their favorite things, or how to have them serve themselves at a banquet table, because that is also going to be part of it. How to use tongs to get things out of a bowl. You can also have conversations with them and help them find opportunities to practice dealing with unfamiliar people and schedules and spaces. Things like, if you spill something on your shirt, you may not get to change for a little while. You're out at canoeing, you're out at archery. That walk back is gnarly. You can't just go off on your own. And so sometimes our Girl Scouts are used to being able to have their needs addressed immediately. And that may not be an option. I mean, it needs, it's a little murky, and also how to advocate for themselves. They have to be prepared to be able to speak and say, I spilled something on my shirt. Can I go change? You know, and that there's going to be group voting, or sometimes there's not group voting. We're just going to archery. And that's what it is, because archery happens at 10, you know, and so having them be equipped to deal with those moments. And they're going to be sharing sleeping quarters with people they've never met before, and that's probably not going to change. So how do they work through that uncomfortability? I'm curious, knowing, you know, the experience that you have had in the room, even Alyssa, with what you've had, like, if you have anybody has any suggestions for the chat of like what's something that you wish you'd known or been able prepared for in advance of going to camp. So what's the thing, even if you read all the FAQs or no matter how prepared you are, I'm sure you showed up and you're like, oh, it didn't even occur to me to think about this. Would love to hear some of that from each other. I'm also going to put in the chat another, well, good. I'm glad that Sarah said I needed someone to teach me all of this before she and me. Excellent. Well, I'm sorry we were too late for you, but now you can help me to change you need to see in the future. I also put a link in the chat for the American Camping Association prepping for camp page. So that's not specific to our camps necessarily, but also gives some other tips that can be really helpful for that. Some notes about cost. Our programs can seem a little bit out of reach financially for some families. We try to have a wide variety of financial support and payment options to help every Girl Scout get to the kind of camp they want to attend. You might have noticed, and it can be really confusing, and even honestly, I have to look at it twice myself, even though I've been here 7 years. So our overnight camps have tiered pricing to help keep it affordable, while also expressing the true cost of overnight camp. And we do that because lots of people, you know, you can list a discount, but they don't understand what that discount means to them. So tier 1 is the highest number and the highest cost, and that reflects the actual cost of the camp. That includes staffing and supplies and food and maintenance and all of that. And then there are 2 additional tiers that equal partially or fully subsidized fees. So when you are registering, you self-select whichever tier is feasible for your family. There's no qualifying for it. There's, you know, no meter check. You just pick which one works for you. Another great thing about Girl Scouts is that we have programming built right in to Girl Scouts to help your Girl Scouts get to camp if that interests them. So participating in our fall and cookie product programs not only helps your Girl Scout gain entrepreneurial skills, not only does it help fund that tiered pricing. Cookie sales is what helps us be able to offer that tiered pricing, but it's also a way your Girl Scout can earn funds to go to camp. So especially Juliette's, Juliette's earn pathway cards in addition to program credits. So they kind of have 2 different streams of funds that they could be working towards to help pay for their own camp. And that can be a great tool as your Girl Scout gets older. If they understand they want to be going to camp, you can work backwards. Like, okay, so camp costs this much. How many packages of cookies do you need to sell to do that? And it can help be a metric. And even when you don't reach that goal, it for one helps continue to motivate them, especially as they get older and they're not as excited about the process, but also like how you get there and be, you know, do we want to do one more weekend of booths? Well, I think we could probably get us all the way to camp if we do. And that's real life experience, because that's all why we work jobs, is because we're trying to get somewhere, not because it's funsies. Something to note, so the program credits that you earn during product programs, you can't use a program credit to pay the $75 deposit required at reservation. But once you've made that deposit out of pocket, you can then apply to have your program credits applied to your account, and then they can in turn refund you that. So I want you to know that part, especially because that deposit may be hard to pull out of pocket at that moment. If you want to learn more about the cookie program and how that all works, I'm going to be putting a link in the chat to our Juliette cookie Q&A session. So that gives a pretty big overview. We had that in our November Juliette session. So it gives you an idea, gives you a rough idea of how program credits and all of that work. It's still possible to get going with cookies as long with the full program if you get everything done by January 17th. And it's even possible to get going with online sales after January 17th. I will also put a link to the program credit page on our website, so you can get an idea of how else those program credits can be used in addition to using it for camp. We offer financial assistance for camp, something called campership. All of our youth members are eligible for campership. It's distributed on a first come, first served basis. The amount awarded is based on income and household size. So information collected for camperships is kept confidential, and it doesn't require proof of income. So if that's something that interests you, I'll have a link in the chat on how you go about seeking that out. In addition to that, there's even more ways you can earn some funds for overnight. We tend to have fall and spring work parties at Camp Arrowhead. So you can come to the property, help work on projects that help get the camp ready. And those who attend get discounts, and there's usually a raffle for up to $100 off for a camp registration. We often offer incentives during our spring membership renewal. So in April, we start registration for the coming Girl Scout year. And usually the earlier you register, you can be entered for things like discounts to camp. We also offer them sometimes at our events like STEM Day, Outdoor Day, Gold, all those sort of things. And there's even a specific scholarship called the Holly Hemmon Award. It recognizes Girl Scouts grades 5 through 12. Who participate actively in Girl Scout and show growth through the program. So again, I'll have a link on how one could apply for that. As a side note, that is not necessarily related to any of that, but this year, for the first time since I've worked here, we are offering some transportation options to Girl Scout camp. So that's pretty exciting, because obviously getting to camp can be a little bit of a challenge. So that's a pretty exciting option. So that just brings us to what's next. As if you haven't done so already, look at the camp brochure. I know everyone here, it sounds like they have an idea what they're doing next year. You can check out our page on the website and a few different preparation information, checklists and such. I put information in the chat on what you need to do if you want to participate in the product program, a cookie specifically. So there's a how to access Juliette cookies, information on that financial assistance. So we'll get you to that scholarship and other ways you can apply for that. And again, if you're watching this recording, all of that information is going to be in the chat. We also wanted to mention that slightly related, because it's cookie related. If you haven't heard, there's going to be a Juliette specific cookie rally in the Portland area this weekend on the 11th. I'm really excited because that's actually being led and hosted by one of our volunteers and their Juliette Girl Scout. You might have seen her a few times at these meetings, Caitlin. They're arranging that. I'll be there to help, but it's actually being run by one of our cadet Girl Scouts. So that's pretty exciting. And it's our first Juliette specific live event that we have had. So hopefully folks can join us there for that. And that covers most everything. So does anybody have any questions? I'm going to look back and just see if I missed anything. I think I would be most concerned about how to make sure my Juliette and their friends can be sure to be ready to hold our own at Camporee. Excellent. So I do have to confess that my knowledge of exactly how Camporee works is a little bit limited. I haven't been to one, so I only kind of gleaned how Camporee works. Tamara, do you have any better concept of how Camporee is run? Okay. To my understanding, camporees are pretty much just like overnight camp, except they are run by volunteers. How they usually work is they're led by volunteers, hosted in their own communities. People must register in groups, so it's assumed to be a troop activity, but you can usually register if you come with your own group. Some sites will allow the Juliettes to make a gaggle. So if any Juliettes register, they gaggle them all together, or sometimes they get paired with troops. How camporees differ the most is it's like the overnight camp experience, except the Juliette or Girl Scouts must arrive with their own adult supervision. There's not enough staff present to serve ratio and proper supervision for all the Girl Scouts that are going to be there. They're expecting the kids to come with their own adults that fit within our ratio rules. So there's, for so many Girl Scouts, there must be so many adults. that have memberships and background checks. And those adults must have a certain level of outdoor experience. If you look back in our cohort, I think it was our very last cohort, we talk a little bit more about what that means and why there's training required. But the short version is, when you do Girl Scout outdoor things, there's the Girl Scout way of doing it. So there's some official things you need to learn, safety precautions for everyone. And so we have a precedent set that if you come to a Girl Scout overnight, all of the adults there are going to have the same level of knowledge. So that way, if I know all the Girl Scout rules, and there's certain ways we do the fire and certain ways we do food prep, and someone else comes in without that training and they're, stick their hands in their mouth and then in the soup pot, like, we don't all have the same knowledge base. So we try and make sure that all the adults arrive with the same knowledge base. So to go to Camporee, you most likely will need to be providing supervision for your Girl Scout or find other Girl Scouts, adults. Juliette mentors do the same. So I've had lots of Juliettes come together where, say you have 6 different Juliettes, they're going to need 2 adults who can serve as their supervision. So of those 6 Girl Scouts, if 2 of the adults in the group are willing to get the training required and have a membership and background check, they can supervise those 6 Girl Scouts. Sometimes Camporees require that, or there might be themes of the Camporee, which they tell you when you register, like of things they're going to do. Sometimes they have competitions, or they're going to focus on outdoor cooking, or you're going to have relay races on setting up tents and things of that nature. So there might be skills you need to learn about before you arrive to feel most successful. So that's the biggest difference. Again, with the registration of the Camporee, they'll usually be able to tell you what you need to know. And they'll also be able to clarify for you what formal training you will need as an adult to form that supervision. The hottest tip about that is that the adult training that is required for those type of experiences is offered very limitedly. There's usually only a couple times a year. It's usually a 2-night, 2 to 3 day experience. You go for the weekend as an adult and receive this training. And they're only offered a couple times a year. I believe there is one coming up in May 2025. So if you know you want to do a Camporee, you have to be on the ball to make sure that you get a reservation at those trainings. If you need help clarifying if that's going to be necessary for you, I would start with the Camporee people registering. If they're not ready or that's not open yet, reach out to us and we can kind of help figure it out for you in advance. But so that's the biggest difference, is there's a whole lot more expectations on the adults for a Camporee than there is overnight camp. And so if you wonder why overnight camp costs so much money, it's because we're paying other people to have that experience for you for a whole lot of kiddos and feed them a whole lot of meals. And but Camporees definitely are a lot more affordable and tend to be local, and they often tend to be held throughout the year. So it's not just summer camp necessarily. If you want to know where to find out about Camporees, I would recommend right now the best place is actually there's we're going to, in a little bit, I'll be posting a link to a Girl Scout Leaders Facebook group, which I highly recommend our Juliette mentors join. That's the best way to find out about events across our council. I know that there's a couple listed pretty recently that you guys can join in on. So you're allowed to, things posted there, you open to anyone in our council. Tamara's saying the registration is open for the junior tent camp at Mountaindale in April 2025. And Juliet's who register will be grouped together. From what you understand on the flyer, just mentioning for what it's worth. Excellent. I appreciate that. I think I know I cross-posted one on the Juliette Facebook group. So yeah, it just varies by the camp on if they'll do the matching for you or if they expect you to arrive with your own group. It's a fair bit of, it's tricky if they do the matching for you because you don't know what you're going to get for an infinite amount of time. And it'll be hard to know what skills you need to have before you get there because you don't know if you're counting on another troop or things of that nature. So it's just kind of a crapshoot there. Any other questions or thoughts that revealed from all of that? As you're thinking of that, if anything comes up, we have a moment in these sessions for, we call it classified. So if there's a skill or type of connection you're looking to make, you can put that in the chat, and we share that with each other. So you might be wanting someone to go to Camporee with, or things of that nature. You could put it here. And if you have a service or skill or information that you're willing to share with each other, you could put that in the chat as well, so that you can make connections outside of the space. We only usually share it with people who were here present, but if you said, I'm looking for Camporee, I might work with you outside of the space to see if we can find someone else to go to Camporee with you. Some resources that were not on this topic, but you'll probably find helpful. Again, I'm going to post a link to the attendance. If you didn't fill that out for me yet, please do that so I can make sure to follow up with you. We have a Juliette specific Facebook group. So that is a place you can hear about some events like this, but it's not quite as hearty as the Oregon and Southwest Washington GS Leaders Facebook group. Again, that's open, like the Juliette Facebook group is a little bit closed. We only allow in mentors of Girl Scouts who are registered. The leader Facebook group does not gatekeep in that way, but again, that has a big, broader reach. So that's a great way to get to know other people. If you haven't seen it yet and you're interested, it doesn't apply to new people in this room, but an introduction to Juliette Girl Scouts. So that gets you a big overview of the Girl Scout experience. So that can be pretty helpful, especially if you're too new and this feels out of left field for you. We've got the Juliette Adult Cohort schedule, so it lets you know what the next topics of these meetings is going to be. There is a February one that is on money earning. So it kind of explains, aside from just the product programs, how money earning works and just how money earning works in general for Girl Scouts. I did officially cancel the March cohort because that is cookie time, and if you guys have time, I'm so happy for you, but I do not. I'm actually a product manager for about 7 trips during cookie time, so I'm a little bit bananagrams. And then there's also the recordings playlist. So that is where we store these recordings. I usually post it by 10 o'clock the next morning, but so if you want to look back at past sessions, you can check that out. Let's see, we've got another comment. So my daughter is intrigued by an idea you mentioned in the November cohort about selling cookies in a wagon. Any tips, rules, or details about doing that? Excellent. So selling in a wagon partners with walkabouts, which is basically door to door. So when you have cookies in hand, your Girl Scout is able to have cookies in a wagon. You go door to door. You could, in theory, walk about in public spaces for sale. The sticky spot is if you hold still. Once you hold still, like if you were to go stand on the street corner, like in a neighborhood or something, and want to stand there and sell cookies, well, now you're a booth. You're stationary. Once you're stationary, it's a booth, and the rules about booths are different. But if you wanted to, you're taking your dogs on a walk and you want to bring the wagon with you, you could do that. You can go door to door with cookies in hand and offer them for sales for immediate gratification as opposed to an order form. But once you stand still for longer than making the sale, if you plan to just it's like a lemonade stand but with a wagon instead, then that's considered a booth, and that gets handled a little bit differently. It is possible to sell like a lemonade stand. We usually called it My Sales. It's called a little something different now, but you are able to, if you have it has to be a private property, so you can't just go to a park and decide you want to sell there, because that's not your place. But on private property, your house, somebody you know's home, you can elect to have a sale there. We don't put those in the system because we don't want to direct the general public to someone's house. But you could set up a lemonade stand, but it can look however you need it to look. Must be an adult with the Girl Scouts. And then you can also set up your own booths at a not private, in a public location or a business. but that has to go through your service unit. Do you feel like you need any more information about that, Sarah? No? Okay. And then Tamara saying also, just for what it's worth, my younger girl is in a troop and was very nervous about going by herself without her friends and troopmates to overnight camp, but she had a great time. Everyone else in her group was there on their own, not as part of an existing peer group. That's a great point. So it's possible to register for overnight camp and request a buddy. So if you and Bestie are going, you can ask to be roomed together. We cannot guarantee that will happen. But it is, there's usually no more than 2 Girl Scouts who are coming on the same thing and know each other. Everybody else does not know anybody, or at least doesn't know many of anybody. So everyone is in the same boat. My Girl Scout had not really done much of any. Had only done a few meetings, had never done overnight camp, and was very introverted, very neurodivergent and comfortable with things, but got there by night 2. They were chill. They had their bunk mates. They create a lot of community with their housing bunks. And that's by design. There's 4 to 8 Girl Scouts, depending on what camp and what kind of structure they're in. And they tend to become their own little community. So, but yeah, everybody is in the same boat when they go on their own. So that's a pretty good tip. So if we missed anything, something that was not clear, new questions unveiled, feel free to reach out to me. I'll have the best email in the moment, or you can put it in the chat now and I can follow up with you. So our next session is going to be, I put it properly there, February 3rd. And again, that's going to be about money earning and a little opportunity for cookie support. I didn't mention, mistakenly, they're also, so we have a Taste of Cookies cohort program for cookies. If this is your first time cookie selling, we recommend it. It's like this, but more often. It's weekly. So whatever is coming up in the next couple of weeks, you can come on Tuesdays and hear the nuanced ideas of how one does a thing. How do I sign up for booths? How do I use a wagon at cookies? Things of that nature. That space is meant for that. The stuff that's really in the weeds and really hard for your service unit volunteer to get into as they're managing 20 troops. And they're also recorded. So there's a playlist. So if you can't come on those Tuesdays, you can check it out on your own. You don't even have to formally become part of the program to scope out that information. And starting next week, we're also going to start having TPM kind of office hours support calls weekly, virtual, just like this. They're for people serving as troop product managers, and that includes Juliette's and traditional troops. Again, very similar to this. There'll be a topic each week of what they're kind of focusing on, and you kind of come in, get some nuanced ideas, ask some random questions. I don't know if they're recording those. I'm pretty sure they are. So there's quite a few support options for cookie season this year for anybody who's participating in that. But other than that, I hope to see you all in February. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. I'm going to stop sharing. And we're under time, so that lets, if there's anything